I started doing a lot of Canadian gigs. I think maybe I'll make this the last story. So I started doing a lot of Canadian gigs. And the gig was, it paid a lot of money, but I had a car still, or I'd get a car and I'd drive up a lot of times. I'd drive up. It was for a lot of reasons. One, I could bring a lot of they would sell Tylenol 222s, which was Tylenol with codeine. Tylenol with codeine over the counter. So I'd drive back with a trunk full of that. Whatever, I just like driving anyway. I always like driving. So I drive up, and so I'm driving up, and Mark Breslin's supposed to have work permit for me. So I get to the Canadian border. I'm supposed to be going to Toronto, and I get to the Canadian border, and they go, you have your work permit? I said, no, there's one there for me. I give them my name. They go, there's no work permit here for you. You can't go. You can't go through. I go, I got to get through. I timed it so many hours to drive there. I always like to time it, so I had a little bit of rush to me so I can get the adrenaline going, but I didn't want it to be like I missed the show. So I'm sitting there talking to this guy who's in a uniform and a little hat, he's a Canadian immigration officer. I said, I got to get there. There must be some way to get there. And he said, well, let me see what we can do here. He pulls out a book of regulations. This is pre-computer. This is 1981 or so. He uses this huge book of regulations. He's behind a big metal desk, and he pulls his book out and he opens it up, and it's like just huge. And he's flipping through, and he goes, here we go. There's an artist exception. If you're an artist, you don't have to work papers necessary. You don't need to work papers. If you're an artist, you don't need work papers. And he's artist. I said, yeah, artist. Yeah, I'm an artist. He goes, let's see. Sculptor, singer, dancer. I don't see comedian here. No. Comedian's art. Look, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, artists. They're artists. He goes, well, do your act. So in front of this uniformed Canadian immigration officer, standing in front of his metal desk, I started to do. When you strip down your act to just one person, once you get away from like, hey, let's welcome the next comedian. Once you put it in a sterile atmosphere, it's like just pulling you out of your natural habitat, just throwing the monkey into the desert, out of the jungle into the desert. Once you do that, it becomes so obviously how unfunny I was. I start doing my act, and he goes, no, stop, that's not art. And literally, just close the book on me. Just literally close the book. Not even going to bother looking for any of it. There's not even an unfunny guy exemption. We're just close the book. And this rang so true to me because that was it really echoed my own head. I'm not an artist. I never looked at myself as an artist. When I was growing up, I had a couple of incidences that happened. I remember I was like in first grade or so. The teacher said, everybody draw a tree. So I drew my tree. I had purple leaves. I don't know why, just purple leaves. And I remember her coming by my desk, and she picks it up, and she goes, Richie, leaves are not purple. And she holds it up to the whole class. Leaves are not purple. Richie did not hear the assignment, and she marks. They used to get 3 basic grades back then: VS for very satisfactory, S for satisfactory, and US for unsatisfactory. She put a big US on it, and that was that. And I thought to myself, I will never draw again. I was so humiliated, I couldn't take it. I would never draw again. I never could sing. I mean, my singing literally hurts people. And I got that at an early age. I remember in Baptist church one time I was singing. I must have been very loud and off key. I was singing with the church, a hymn they were singing. And I remember one of the women from the choir literally came out of the choir, took the hymnal away from me and said, Richie, you don't have to sing. Jesus knows you love him. So all I had was my comedy. And I remember, I didn't even remember this. I never remembered this story about the purple leaves in the tree until 1981. I went to Paris, and I went into the Louvre, and I stood in front of this painting that had a blue horse. And I went, this guy's got a blue horse in the Louvre, man. I got a purple leaf tree that's worth some money somewhere, man. I said, this is unbelievable. And really, the greatest tribute to this story to me was my oldest daughter, which I never even knew this. My oldest daughter, she got tattoos, like her generation, tattoos. She got a tattoo from the story I told her once of a jacaranda tree on her side. And that's her reminder that art is art, man, and go for whatever you want to do. Thank you. Thank you. I thank you so much for coming out. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ah!